Flight. China. Year of the Tiger, 3255. You may speak freely in front of the Emperor. This is promising news. But do not vex him. This unfortunate proviso contradicts the possibilities afforded by the first instruction. The Buddhist weighs the two options up in his mind as the heavy wooden doors are opened before them, and they enter the long wooden room, the largest in the tower of the first golden phoenix. The Emperor's lackey leaves him here and gestures for him to continue into the great hall. He does so, keeping to the woven mat that indicates his route from the door, passing numerous paintings displayed on unfurled sheets of silk to the Emperor's throne. It's cold, but the Emperor's wearing nothing more than a loincloth. He's also painted up like a woman, and his eyes are red from the previous night's debauch. He gestures for the Buddhist to sit down on the mat before him. The monk bows and does so. "You are here to supervise the ceremony," says the Emperor. "I have watched your people change their ways due to your teachings, so of course I am interested to know your wisdom. I have seen how, in your ceremonies, you release birds into the sky. Is that so?" "That is so." "Do forgive me. I am new to the ways of Buddhism. So when you watch my ceremony, please explain to me if there is any wrong act." He descends from the throne and marches towards the balcony, beckoning for the monk to join him. "If I understand correctly," the Emperor begins. The Buddhist looks out as he speaks at the swaying bamboo gantry that extends before them, as high as 15 people from the ground. "The soul of a man can pass into the soul of an animal." And on the gantry, some 16 or so prisoners bound to it by ropes, each with an armed guard behind him. The Buddhist nods. "Speak, Buddhist." "There is no more to say. You state that according to our way of thinking, the soul of a man can pass into the soul of an animal. That is correct. Tell me when, what conditions, and how." The prisoners on the gantry hop around, like birds indeed, as ropes are harnessed around them. "This depends on the life of each man," the Buddhist says. "How?" "If he has been good, he may pass into the body of a higher animal on reincarnation." "And if he has been bad?" "Then he will pass into the body of a lowlier creature." "Like a bird?" "It may be a bird." "And these creatures?" he indicates with a sweep of the arm the prisoners now being fitted with their great bamboo mats. "They have done evil." "I cannot judge," the Buddhist says. "They have invaded my country." Do not vex the Emperor, he remembers. This is the man that last week fired an arrow at the Empress, then had her whipped for dodging out of the way. The man who fucked the consort's sister, then had her beheaded. True, he later repented, but this was the same volatile man-child. The Buddhist is standing just 4 feet before him, and the Emperor is on the edge of being vexed. The monk remains impassive. What will be, will be. Let the Emperor speak next. Every word, the Buddhist says, may be a noose for his own neck. These creatures are evil, the Emperor insists. Some of the prisoners on the gantry resist, but by now most of them have had their bamboo contraptions strapped to their backs. Yet the Emperor is kind. "In a spirit of investigation, I will order them to be pushed from the tower, in the hope that they transform themselves into birds. If this is the case, they will be freed. Regard the Purple Way. and another sweep of the arm directs the Buddhist's gaze to the horizon away to their left. If the prisoner reaches the purple way, I shall consider him to be free. But then he may also be a bird, or at least half a bird, in order to fly so far, would you not say? So any that survive shall be inspected, and we shall discover more laws of nature by this method. Does this procedure seem correct to you? For 1,000 years, the Buddha's teachings have been with them, but still they are tested. He knows this charade has been set up to mock his religion. The prisoners are not even Buddhists after all, but rebels from a northern province who failed in their rebellion. Evil, as the emperor said. They came from the north, and if they can fly, then they are free to fly back home. The purple path leads the way, and, just beyond the mountains, more rebels. The monk wonders what the emperor's real intention is. If men can fly, then he can send them over the mountains to spy on the enemy forces' movements, perhaps. This would give him great power. Or perhaps he merely wishes to catapult them to their deaths in a way that his enemies can see. Many more were dead already, lying now in cold heaps on the mountains. But to die in battle is not to die like a child's toy, an object of ridicule. To die in battle is a guarantee of afterlife. The monk looks down towards the ground and sees the others from his village, standing silently, looking up into the skies towards them. These small, gathered crowds are the real intended spectators of this sacrifice. Every death will be seen as a failure of the things that he has taught them, and he realizes that it was for this moment that his teacher had sent him to this province in particular. Of the many wise things the old teacher knew, the monk remembered how he had told him of a Mauryan emperor many centuries ago in India, who was as cruel as this one. But a monk had come to him to show him the ways of the Buddha, and the emperor had turned away from cruelty, stopped his cruel punishments, stopped eating animals, freed his slaves, became kind. This Mauryan emperor liked to burn people alive. This emperor in front of the monk now might seem lenient by comparison. But then the monk looks to his left, away over to the purple path, and calculates the distance. It is impossible that a man could fly so far, of course. This is the sport. The emperor gives the order for the first prisoner to be pushed. The man tries desperately to mobilize his huge bamboo wings, but plummets like a stone to the earth direct below. You can hear the crunch of his bones as he hits the ground. The Buddhist tries not to wince. The emperor roars with laughter. "See, see," he says, "another one." The emperor rubs his hands with glee, asks for and receives alcohol, drinks, splutters with laughter, watches as the second guard pushes the second prisoner to his comical, desperately wriggling death. The monk watches this too, and he has to endure the ordeal 14 times more, though his ordeal is nothing compared to that of the ones splayed out 15 human heights below, who didn't die on impact. It goes without saying. "Now," the drunkard says, turning to the robed man, "you say there is a thing called karma that will make everything balance out in the world. Is this not true?" "It is." "So what will happen to me?" "Your Excellency, none of us can see the future." "You avoid my questions. Holy man, I might as well talk to myself." At which the emperor claps 4 times, the signal for one of the lackeys to rush forward with a mirror. He admires himself, but then finds a problem. "Too red here." He points at his left cheek. "Who put this on?" The Buddhist trembles slightly, though surely he will not be asked to take the blame for this random infringement of an inconsistent and unknowable code. This emperor is some terrible overarching punishment that envelops all of them like a spider's web constantly, whatever time of day or night. And so he must watch another lackey beaten or pushed off the gantry. Since they are here so high, why not take advantage of it? How can they stand it? He wonders to himself. I said, who did this? The emperor bellows out again. Then the monk realizes that they, the emperor's people, can no more flee from here than he can. So they must all live under this tyranny with no complaint, or starve in the forest, or in that desert which, in their sing-song language, they call, you go in, but you never come out. Buddhist, shouts the emperor, go! Very gladly, the Buddhist retraces his steps out of the emperor's presence, while the latter threatens to kill all of them if they don't produce a victim for one of his sadistic tortures. The same lackey that ushered the Buddhist in opens the heavy door for him on the way out. You're lucky, the doorman whispers at the foreigner as he walks past. The Buddhist knows no one in the court, nor is he allowed to leave his cell. When the emperor learned of his existence in the village, he was hauled from his dwelling near the Tower of the Golden Phoenix and kept prisoner inside it, alone, apart from the others. Why? Because, in the words of the emperor's officials, it was he who had brought this disease to our land. 10 days pass. A visitor comes to see the monk in his prison. She's bribed the guards somehow. Maybe she will not leave again alive or intact, but she's here now. She brings some fruit and some eggs and also news. After word of how the Buddhists are interpreting these events, and there are many differences of opinion in the village, he is told, she proceeds with news of the man in whose hands his fate lies, the emperor. His drinking continued, she tells him, until he was seemingly drunk perpetually. He ripped off his clothes and rode animals around the town. Donkeys, sheep, anything. He slept where he fell, on the pavement, sometimes with beggars. And when he woke, he continued with his cruelty. They say he was born drunk. His father arranged to have him and his brothers attacked when they were children to see who was the strongest. It was the emperor, of course, the Buddhist guesses. Not only did he resist the attack, he counter-attacked and defeated the emperor's envoy, who he whipped. He's been like this since childhood. Now tell me why you are here. 2 days ago, the woman whispers so the guards can't hear. The Empress Dowager had had enough of these displays. He was play-fucking a venerated statue. She began to shout at the emperor, and instead of raging, he seemed duly shocked and contrite. As a joke, he played at being a cat, and in full view of everybody, crawled up to her chair as if scolded. Then, to continue the joke, he went under the chair, still being a cat, but this tipped the dowager over and she fell with a thump and cracked her head on the floor, where there's no mat. And is she dead? No, but nearly so. And when the emperor awoke from his drunken stupor and saw what he'd done, he locked himself away. And is he still shut away? Is that why you've dared to visit me? No, he set fires wherever he could while shut in his room and hoped to burn to death among them. The officials had to burst the doors down to get in and save him. So he's not locked away. He's out again, and in a strangely silent mood, almost as if he was thinking. They saved him, he smiles. Why did the guards do that? Not so loud, she admonishes. Eat a plum. The monk takes a plum and begins to eat it. So now, the monk says, between chews, like the Mauryan emperor, he's come out of the fog. Is that what you're here to tell me? Can I walk free and return to the village? Let us give him time to consider. Maybe it is due to your talks with him that he's thinking things over. The Mauryan you told us about, he converted on seeing the quantity of slaughtered after a battle, didn't he? It was because of that battle. And also due to the presence of the Buddhist monk, the Buddhist monk reminds her. Of course, brother. Now, he's let me come here and bring you things, but he has not yet promised freedom. There is, though, one promise he's made that, with the passage of time, may free us all. Has he promised not to drink? She nods and smiles. Today he said no to wine. He refused the cup. Let us pray. Yes, but remember, prayer does not alter things. Prayer maintains things. So they pray together. 10 days pass. The Emperor, with his long hair now waxed outwards so that he looks, at least in his own imagination, like the sun, is riding on top of an elephant. He tries to stand, but the elephant's movements are too jerky, and he thinks better of it. Naked apart from the gold and orange sash over his shoulder, he pours goblets of wine from a cask tied onto the beast's neck, and drinks as the elephant plods on rhythmically to the sound of the 4 accompanying drummers. Most of the villagers have never seen or even heard of such a beast, or seen anything like the dancing girls that follow. There's also a cohort of extra prisoners there, purely for the Emperor's appeasement. The Prime Minister is so fed up of the Emperor's arbitrary punishments that he now pre-selects appropriate victims, who follow behind in chains. There is a proviso. If any of them should survive for 3 months, they shall be let free. The Emperor is a kind Emperor. And as his procession passes through, the Emperor shouts at one old woman, "How does the Emperor of the Sun appear to you today?" She, as drunk as he is, shouts back, "Like the mad old fucker that he is." She's taken away by guards. Telling the truth cannot be her crime, so a treason charge may have to be levelled. At any rate, she won't be seen again. But why such festivities? They are all on their way to the Tower of the Golden Phoenix once more, for another attempt to defy nature's laws and see how ordinary human mortals transmigrate from a great height. The Buddhist is hauled from his cell. It seems his only purpose now is to witness these atrocities. He didn't expect his Buddha nature to be tested in this way, but in his head he's envisaging ways of pushing the tyrant off the tower. Are there times when the Emperor might wander near enough to the opening? Near enough the edge of the platform? The Buddha would not think like this, he reprimands himself. Today is a special day, the Emperor announces with glee. Did you admire my beasts, my drums and my cymbals? I did, Your Excellency. He looks down to see if the villagers are looking up at them. Of course they are. The guards are close. Then he looks out over to the purple path. Only 6 prisoners today, but improved bird machines. Maybe today we see a man fly. Also, special prisoner. In terms the monk only half understands, he explains that the prisoner that is furthest from them, the last to fly, is someone or other's son, another rebel, but one that could be worth his weight in gold. Am I foolish to risk his life when I could have the gold? One must think always of best outcomes, the monk replies. The Emperor furrows his brow and takes a sip of sake, slushes it around his mouth before saying, I ask you a question. You give the question back in different clothes. Truly, a most useless religion. He tosses his goblet onto the floor, where it traces a half circle, then back on itself. The monk stops it with his foot. You take that, the Emperor says offhandedly. Cup with no wine is no use. Now, he shouts at the first guard, let him fly. The law of gravity is still the same as last time, and the first birdman victim crashes almost vertically downwards. And so they watch as before. But a strange thing is happening. A wind is beginning to blow from the south, and the skies are becoming darker. As the second prisoner plunges to his death, the piled-up clouds are now overhead, and the wind is truly raging by the time the fourth has managed to be blown to the edge of the first field, some quarter of the distance to the purple path. The rain begins to spit, and the wind gets up. Number 5 shares the same fate as number 4, his pitiful screams trailing away into the distance. Then the miracle happens. As the 6th prisoner is released, a mighty gust comes along, and between that and the strange design of the bamboo wings, the prisoner not only does not fall, but is lifted up into the sky. All watch as his bird-shaped frame is launched towards the north, over and over the fields towards the purple path. There is a stunned silence. The drops of rain get thicker, the storm is coming. The Buddhist and the Emperor look at each other. "We have seen a man fly," the latter says. "Now we must see if he is a bird." "Your Excellency, you said that if they attained the purple path, their flight was complete and they could go. If, by the greatest fluke, the important son survived, he can't be in any good state, lying under the sodden skies, bruised and broken. But if given the choice, he would probably stay there, rather than come back here." "We shall retrieve him and speak to him," the Emperor says. "He may have seen something of interest to us. As you know, the enemy armies may be massing just behind that hill. It would be useful if he could tell us if this is the case or not. And then he will be released, as you promised." "Yes, yes," says the Emperor, and claps his hands twice. A guard comes forward. "Now you return to your cell." The guard puts a hand on his shoulder, and he's taken away again. 10 days pass. The monk, who was thin in any case, is now almost skeletal, and spends almost all his waking time praying. He doesn't chant, as it annoys the important man's son, who was brought in immediately after the flight. The miracle was not the flight, but his still being alive, if broken. He's dead now, it should be said, and has been for 5 days. But still, the monk chants silently in his head, so as not to disturb him. Beside him is the silver cup the Emperor dropped on the floor and made him a present of. No use without wine. 10 days pass. The Emperor is drunk again. He's wearing robes today and bathing his feet in a large porcelain bowl. Beside him on the bench is the head of another one of the consorts with whom he'd had an argument. Nobody wants to approach the Emperor at this hour, or any hour, in truth, but someone has to ask what is to be done, as the corpses are stinking up the jail. They're in wooden crates, but can't be taken out from behind bars as they have not officially been released. The Emperor seems to have forgotten about them altogether. Indeed, when the messenger begins his message, the Emperor's brow wrinkles as he tries to focus on who he's talking about. "We wish to seek permission for their release from prison." "On what grounds?" "They're dead, Your Excellency." His Excellency takes quite a few minutes to weigh the matter up before grunting and saying, "Very well then, since they are dead," and he takes another sip of wine, "they are free to go." The Emperor is a kind Emperor.